Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our Expert Insights series. This one is titled AI for Project and Process Leaders. I'll just wait a couple seconds here and let everyone come into the room. We're really glad that you've taken some time out of your evening to spend it with us. So before we get going, I wanted to actually say a few words about who we are. UW Continuum College, believe it or not, has been around for over a century. It was established in 1912, and our role is to expand the University of Washington's impact by meeting learners where they are in life and helping them get to where they want to go. So we do that by offering relevant, flexible educational experiences, the right programs for the right people at the right time. And our goal is to make sure anyone can access the knowledge and the opportunities they need through the University of Washington and use that to make a greater impact in their work and in the world. So within Continuum College is our professional and continuing education new unit, where we offer a wide range of options from certificates to degrees to individual standalone courses, specializations. And within those, we have built-in networks and hands-on experiences. So the idea is to make it possible for people to learn anything from anywhere. So whether someone wants to update their skills, explore a brand new field, or take the next step in their career, there's a class for that, and ultimately, there's a path forward. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our series of Expert Insights webinars. So this free series brings together our instructors who are also industry professionals to share what's trending in their field, the tools you'll need to succeed, and practical career advice to help you stand out in today's market. And I'm especially excited about tonight's panel, AI for Project and Process Improvement Leaders, because the conversation really feels so timely. Artificial intelligence is rapidly reshaping how organizations operate, from how insights are generated to how decisions are made to how teams approach problem solving. But what does all this mean specifically for project managers, Lean Six Sigma practitioners, and continuous improvement professionals? And how do we prepare ourselves for the next stage of this shift? So tonight's session really brings together three of our expert instructors, Carolyn Dalen, Michael Mage, and Nicole Nisbet, who collectively bring decades of experience across healthcare, government, and enterprise IT. So rather than focusing on tools alone, they'll actually explore where AI accelerates insight and decision-making, where human expertise remains essential, how project management and CI roles really are evolving, and then finally, what skills professionals need as AI becomes a part of that everyday workflow. And then I want to say a quick word about our format for tonight. So we'll move through these panel presentations this evening, and then we'll reserve the last 15 minutes for a dedicated Q&A. So if you have questions at any point in time during this panel, please enter them in the Q&A tool within Zoom. And this really helps us make sure that we don't miss anything. And if your question is for a specific panelist, please include their name in that question. So feel free to submit these questions as they arrive, and we'll collect them and bring them forward during the Q&A portion. So without further ado, get into introducing our speakers. So Nicole Nisbet leads Continuous Improvement Program at Washington State Department of Transportation. She oversees statewide Lean Six Sigma capability development and supports leaders and teams through large-scale, people-centered change. Nicole brings nearly 20 years of experience in process improvement, facilitation, and organizational change leadership. She holds certificates as a Pro-C Change Manager, Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, ADT Master Trainer, and 4 LINTS Facilitator, and has a bachelor's degree in sociology. Michael Mage is an internal process improvement consultant at MultiCare Health System. Michael coaches leaders, facilitates A3 problem solving, and deploys lean management systems across healthcare operations. He brings 8 years of continuous improvement experience and over a decade of teaching across higher education, local government, and healthcare. He is a Lean Six Sigma Black Belt and holds a master's degree in education from Seattle University. And finally, Carolyn Dalen. Carolyn's a professional project manager with more than 20 years of experience leading complex enterprise-level IT initiatives. She has worked extensively across major Seattle healthcare organizations, including Providence, Swedish, Evergreen, Virginia Mason, and Philips North America. Karen holds PMP, PMI ACP, and Certified Scrum Master credentials, along with recent specializations in generative AI and prompt engineering. She earned her master's degree in organizational leadership and her bachelor's degree in computer information systems from Chapman University. We're really thrilled to have all three panelists with us today. So let's dive in. I'll turn things over to you, Nicole, to get started.
Thank you, Brian. Now I'll get us started by talking about a practical way for us to think about how AI is affecting both process improvement and project management. So I'm not going to get into specific tools or detailed use cases. That's going to come a little later with Michael and Carolyn. But we're going to talk about a mental model that's going to help us make sense of everything else you're going to hear today. So think about it like that. The next couple minutes, we'll be looking at a mental model. So I think most improvement efforts aren't stalling in organizations because teams are lacking the methods to do it or the intelligence to do the work. Really, most organizations already have Lean Six Sigma, continuous improvement, Agile, project management, all of the different methodologies there and ready to go. What's slowing progress is more about bandwidth. And that's where AI can come in, is already starting to come in to help with these disciplines to move things forward. There's three ways that I'm going to talk about how AI is going to help us with this bandwidth problem. The first is understanding what's really happening. So that's things like gathering data, reconciling perspectives, validating assumptions. This can take weeks or months. And now with AI, as we'll look at, it can go much, much faster. Second, preparing, documenting, and translating work. Creating materials, reports, updates, communications. It's often a major time-consuming part of every effort that we have, whether it's a Lean Six Sigma project or a larger scale IT project. And third, turning information into decisions and shared understanding. So teams can have plenty of data, plenty of information coming in, yet still struggle to get aligned on what to do next and actually make change happen. In other words, improvement's not stalling because of intelligence, right? Like I said, it's really about that bandwidth. And that's where we're seeing AI really help us in being a thought partner and reducing some of that friction so that we can move faster and get in place what we need to get in place. So by partnering with teams on analysis, automation, and insight generation, AI is really helping us move to the next level. Next slide, please, Brian. All right. So a useful way to think about AI's roles is through those three capabilities that I mentioned: analysis, automation, and insight generation. You'll see them repeatedly across different industries and workflows, but specifically when we're talking about process improvement and project management, this is a good way to think about how they show up in kind of a large bucket sense. Analysis is really focusing on understanding the reality before digging into action, identifying patterns, causes, constraints, things of that nature. Automation, we think of AI, we think of automation. When we're talking about it from process improvement and project management, we're looking at reducing cognitive and administrative burden. So helping us offload some of that work that's going to consume attention, but doesn't really require that much judgment. We're going to get into what that looks like. And then finally, insight generation. It's going to help us transform information into actual meaning. So helping those individuals who are on projects or groups who are working on initiatives understand things like, what are the implications? What are some potential trade-offs? What are the risks that are happening if we go various directions? It's going to help us really accelerate human thinking rather than replacing it. AI is really a thoughtful thinking partner with us as professionals and the teams that we're working with to help us expand perspective, handle that repetitive work that's bogging us down, helping clarify those conclusions, and really getting us to where we want to be with different efforts that we have. So as you listen to the rest of this webinar, think of how the examples that Michael and Carolyn are going to give are going to fall into one of these three categories. Before I pass it to Michael, though, I want to get in a little bit deeper into each one of those three elements. The first one is the analysis. So it's really about understanding reality before acting. We dig into this a lot when we do Lean Six Sigma projects. And this is often why improvement efforts or large-scale efforts of any kind succeed or fail, because we don't spend enough time really digging into understanding what is happening. So on the technical side, AI can help us rapidly examine large volumes of data or information. Doesn't have to be data from a numbers standpoint, but any type of large amount of information. And not just examine it, but really analyze what patterns are in there, where are bottlenecks potentially, where's variation that would take a lot longer for us to look at without using AI support. It also can help us generate potential root causes or what we think might be happening. So it's like having another brain in the room when we're looking at how do we understand what's happening here. It's not about determining the answer, right? It's about expanding the space of possible explanations, helping us go past those first assumptions and really explore what's happening in this situation. Equally important, and we don't want you to lose sight of this, is the analysis of the human and organizational system. So keeping that human element of it. That's a really big piece of this. It's going to help us dig in and learn more, but ultimately it's going to be about the humans in the end who are going to make that decision of what we do with it. All right, let's go to the next one. The second is automation. It's really important for us just to understand, though, that it's not just automation in the sense of now it's going to do something for me and I don't have to look at it anymore. We think about that, right? Repetitive mechanical tasks. Today, AI enables us to do more than just those repetitive tasks. It's more about cognitive automation. So offloading work that involves higher level thinking, things related to language, preparation, or even synthesizing information, not necessarily decision making, but really helping us with those more cognitive type tasks. And on the administrative side. So we do have on the administrative side, more kind of logistically, AI can help us draft project artifacts, summarize the data like we talked about, generate reports, produce routine updates, draft emails, those kinds of things. On the cognitive side, it takes it to the next level where it can help us prepare for meetings, draft agendas, draft workshop agendas, help us determine how we're going to work with a group moving forward, create presentation materials, write communications tailored to specific audiences or specific stakeholders. It's really going to help with the productivity gains. And I know we're seeing it on my team. And from when I've talked to other professionals in the field too, it helps you go get more done with less time and still get the value that you need out of it. So you can think about AI in this sense, especially that cognitive automation, as thinking with us and then writing for us. So it's not replacing us in that sense of automation, but it is working with us and then offloading some of that work so that we don't have to spend the 3 hours it takes to craft that email in just the right way, boils it down to 15 minutes instead of 3 hours. Automation also supports facilitation. Seems kind of weird. It's not like I have a robot in the room while I'm facilitating a group, right? Maybe someday. Not yet. But it does help us do things. It can. AI can help us. It can help capture notes, capture structured notes if you're in a virtual meeting, track decisions and action items, synthesize all the things that come out of a meeting, all of that information, and make sure that we can then send out an after summary that much faster. Go from taking, again, an hour to sifting through my notes to send things out to 10 minutes working with AI to then be able to send it out. And it leaves the facilitator the ability to do things like listen, observe the group dynamics, really focus in on those human elements that need to be paid attention to while offloading the piece of automation to AI. So it's really helping us with that cognitive load. So it frees up attention for activities that are going to require human elements like judgment, empathy, and leadership. And then the last one, which is insight generation. This is distinct from analysis and automation. There's some overlap between the three, but analysis is telling us what is happening. Insight is really telling us what it means and what to do about it. So at the individual level, AI can help translate analytical findings, right, into implications. It can explore scenarios with us, examine different trade-offs. It's like having another brain in the room to help us figure out what are we going to do now with this information. Reframing problems in different ways, leading to new solutions even, because it can help bring so much information together, so many different perspectives, and come up with something new that maybe we wouldn't have thought about. At the group level, insight generation with the support of AI can help with collective sense making, which is really just that fanciest way of saying, how do we get to a shared understanding on this? We've talked about so many different things. How do we come up with a shared understanding and get going on the same path together? So with that, it can help us synthesize viewpoints naturally and more easily than we normally would be able to, highlighting areas where maybe there's similarities or overlap that we weren't able to see. And then it helps us move forward with a shared understanding. So it really reduces kind of that circular discussions, those back and forth of where are we landing and what should we do, by really synthesizing that information and helping us with that insight generation. All of this underlined, and I know I've said it before, but I'm going to say it again. To be clear, AI does not replace leadership or responsibility. It can help us determine priorities, read. It can't do these things. It can help us pull them forward, but we are the ones that ultimately have to determine the priorities. We are the ones that have to read the emotional dynamics in the room, manage that resistance that comes up as we're creating change within workplaces, and then take accountability for the outcomes. Those are going to remain fundamentally human roles, but what AI can do is strengthen that human capability. And really used well, it acts as a thinking partner. That's the big thing, right? It acts as that thinking partner, helps us expand perspective, helps us reduce friction with automation, helps individuals and groups reach clarity through insight generation. So with that lens in mind, those three things, the next speakers are going to explore how organizations are applying the capabilities of AI across real workflows and why this ability to work effectively with AI is becoming absolutely essential for improvement professionals and project management professionals. Michael, you want to take it?
Thanks, Nicole. Good evening, everyone. I'm Michael Mage, and I'm going to take that lens that Nicole just presented, analysis, automation, and insight, and build upon it with some practical examples using the DMAIC framework. I come to this conversation as a Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, working in healthcare as a process improvement consultant. I work alongside clinicians, operational leaders, and staff who are doing complex and demanding work every day. And my role is to help teams better understand their processes, solve problems, and make improvements that actually stick. This role has made me very interested in AI, not as a trend, but as a practical question. What can this technology actually help us do better? And I want to start with something very ordinary. Most of the teams I work with are not asking for cutting edge technology. They're asking for fewer handoffs, clearer priorities, and less rework. They want less friction in the system. That's the lens I'm bringing tonight. In healthcare, we are seeing growing interest in AI, but we're also moving with care, and for good reason. This is a patient-centered environment. We are dealing with the sensitive patient information, professional clinical judgment, and decisions that can affect people's health and safety. So there has to be good governance, has to be human oversight, and some humility about what these new tools can and cannot do well for us. That humility matters because AI is very good at speed and scale, but it also has no lived experience, no emotional intelligence, and no actual accountability. Those things still belong to humans. So for those of you who may be less familiar, DMAIC stands for Define, Measure, Analyze, Improve, and Control. It is the core problem-solving approach in Lean Six Sigma that uses the scientific method. Today, we are surrounded by more data, more tools, and more pressure to move quickly. But speed without discipline can create many new problems just as easily as it solves old ones. DMAIC slows us down in the right places. It helps us to ask, what problem are we actually trying to solve? How do we know what is actually happening? What should we improve? And how do we ensure those improvements are sustainable? In other words, DMAIC protects us from mistaking activity for progress. So I want to walk you through 5 examples, one for each DMAIC phase, and show how AI can strengthen each phase. These are current use cases, work that is happening today, not in some distant future. Let's start with define. In improvement work, this is where we try to get clear on the problem. And ideally, we are not just defining the problem from the perspective of management or from the loudest person in the room. We are looking to the voice of the customer, the VOC. That often means customer comments, survey responses, and individual feedback. Qualitative coding is useful, but slow. It takes time to sift through, code it well, and make sense of patterns at scale. When you have thousands of comments, human review alone becomes a bottleneck. One study by the RAND Corporation looked at that exact problem. The question was whether AI can help health systems make use of large volumes of patient narratives without relying entirely on manual review. They found that AI models were better at detecting rare but important themes and even handled actionability well, a concept the researchers note is difficult for humans to code consistently. What stood out to me in the results is that AI didn't just perform about as well as humans on average, it performed especially well where humans struggle most, low frequency but high impact themes. Those are exactly the issues that tend to get buried in summary averages, but end up driving complaints, safety events, or loss of trust. Their conclusion was that the best model was not machine alone, but a hybrid approach. Labor-saving potential lies in combining machine and human coders. AI does not replace human judgment. It replaces hours of sorting, providing more time to determine which customer requirements are critical to quality, CTQs. In the measure phase is where many improvement projects struggle. It is also where we hit a common limit. Process measurement is often manual, expensive, and based on sampling. In healthcare, hand hygiene is a good example. One study asked whether human observation is really the best way to measure such an important safety behavior. Researchers used privacy-safe depth sensors to detect sanitizer dispenser use, then compared those results with human observers, the gold standard. The key finding was that the system performed well. The algorithm achieved 96.8% concordance with human observers, but that it provided continuous coverage. Another important detail from the study is that human observers missed a meaningful number of events simply because they weren't present. The AI system didn't get tired, didn't change behavior when watched, and didn't rely on small samples. From a measurement standpoint, that's a fundamental shift, from estimating performance to actually observing it. That means faster feedback instead of waiting for the next audit, leading to cleaner hands and decreasing the chances of a hospital-acquired infection. From a lean perspective, this strengthens the measure phase by reducing sampling bias and measurement system error. Analyze is where we try not to jump to conclusions. This is harder than it sounds, especially in healthcare where people are busy and everyone has a theory about what is causing the problem. One useful example comes from a neurology and stroke unit that used Lean Six Sigma and machine learning to compare operations before and during COVID. Their goal was to understand what had changed in the system and which variables best explained it. The machine learning did not prove causation. It did something more practical. It narrowed down the suspect list. Length of stay stood out as a major factor. That gave the team a sharper place to investigate. What the authors emphasized is that traditional averages masked important differences between patient groups and care pathways. Machine learning helped surface those patterns that weren't obvious in standard reports, particularly where variability increased under COVID conditions rather than performance simply getting worse across the board. What I like here is that AI did not replace root cause analysis. It helped the team sort the signal from the noise so they could develop countermeasures more intelligently. Improve is where the stakes go up because now we're actually changing the system. In this phase, we talk about testing countermeasures, not implementing solutions. Since we really can't call something a solution until it has proven itself in practice. That is why I find the digital twin example so compelling. This study asks how healthcare teams might model a real-time clinical workflow closely enough to redesign it more safely. The idea is simple. Build a digital workflow model so you can test changes before trying them in real life. That's basic A/B testing for clinical operations, allowing users to compare staffing patterns, routing rules, handoffs, and bed flow decisions. It lets teams ask, what if, without putting patients or staff at risk. The digital twin could track 72% of staff-performed tasks in real time, and it identified documentation burden so heavy that reducing redundancies could save nurses about 25 minutes per shift. That's huge. That's the difference between a rested nurse and an exhausted one. To put that in perspective, the authors note that this time savings came from eliminating work that felt necessary but didn't add value. Duplicated documentation, late data entry, and tasks done purely to satisfy downstream systems. That's classic lean waste, finally made visible at scale. That makes improvement efforts more scientific and less risky. You can screen ideas, stress test them under different conditions, and then run a smarter pilot with a better chance of success. And then we get to control. This is where many improvement projects weaken. A dashboard gets built, a follow-up plan gets written, then attention shifts and improvement gains start to backslide. This radiotherapy example shows a stronger model using AI to make quality assurance more focused and sustainable. The team used machine learning and Lean Six Sigma to predict when treatment plans were most likely to fail, quality checks, then flag them daily so human attention could be directed where it matters most. The results here are subtle but important. Over months of real clinical use, the system did not flood staff with alerts. Only a small percentage of plans were flagged, and most flags continued through a downstream streamlined process. That's good control design. Sensitive enough to catch risks, but stable enough to avoid alarm fatigue. That is what a sustained control plan can look like with AI. Not just reviewing performance after the fact, but building in an early warning system into the process itself. So to conclude my part, I believe the way forward is not human judgment or AI alone. It is human judgment with AI. DMAIC gives us the discipline. AI extends our reach. That is especially true in healthcare, where the work is human and the stakes are high. The opportunity is not replacing continuous improvement. It's pairing DMAIC with AI in a way that makes our problem solving stronger, smarter, and more human. And now I will pass it over to Carolyn to talk about skills of the future.
Thank you, Nicole and Michael. That was a terrific look at how AI is already making itself incredibly useful in our workflows. Now, I'd like to zoom out just slightly. If that's what AI can do already, what does that mean for us as professionals? What kind of skill set is going to be in demand, not just today, but over the next decade? One thing I hear constantly from professionals right now is a mixture of excitement and anxiety. People can see how powerful these tools are becoming, but they also wonder where that leaves the human professional. So the question becomes, if the tools keep getting smarter, where do we fit? Next slide. Well, let me start with something important. The core of what we do is not disappearing. Those capabilities that we have, structured thinking, root cause analysis, and stakeholder alignment, those skills are professional foundation we built our whole careers on. And organizations still very much need disciplined problem solvers, people who can get to the root cause, systems thinkers, and facilitators who can align stakeholders. AI does not replace structured thinking. It does expose weak thinking, but it amplifies strong thinking. Let me give you a quick example. I recently watched someone prompt an AI tool to generate a project plan. The tool produced something that looked impressive. It had milestones, dependencies, even a risk register. But when we looked closer, we saw that the plan assumed upon resources that did not exist, and the timelines ignored additional time needed for regulatory approvals that were critical within that particular project's industry and environment. But note, this was not AI making a mistake. It was simply filling in gaps where no information had been provided to it. The professional skill then is knowing what questions should have been asked before generating that plan in the first place. If the professional foundation remains the same, the real question becomes, what new capability are we augmenting on top of it? Should be on slide 3. AI literacy, good. What is changing is the expectation that we know how to work with these tools. AI literacy, meaning the ability to generate, question, and validate AI outputs, is becoming part of expected professional literacy. AI produces likely, legitimate answers, not guaranteed truths. Our role shifts towards intelligent validation. I sometimes demonstrate this in class. I'll ask an AI system to generate a list of project risks for a scenario. It usually produces a pretty solid list in just a few seconds, but it almost never introduces things like the effects of internal politics or a particular stakeholder, an important stakeholder's resistance, or regulatory nuances. Those are the things experienced human professionals recognize immediately. That's why the new skill isn't just generating answers, it's validating them. Next screen, please. If we step back for a moment, there are 2 main capabilities that form the professional foundation, and a third that provides augmentation. Continuous improvement provides structured analysis. That's foundational knowledge. Project management provides execution discipline. That's also foundational knowledge. AI literacy provides acceleration. That's your augmentation. When those 3 are integrated, we move from insight to action faster without sacrificing quality. Continuous improvement helps us understand why something is happening. And project management helps us organize how to change it. AI tools help us explore possible paths faster in any discipline than we could do on our own. Next slide. The ability to explore paths faster and reach results faster is mission critical because analysis time is compressing, decision cycles are shrinking. Meanwhile, expectations are still rising. It used to be just a few years ago, if a leadership team wanted an analysis of a problem, they might wait a week or so for that report. Today, someone can generate at least an intelligent first pass in a few minutes. Now, that doesn't mean it's a finished answer, but it does signal a change in expectations. Leaders now start asking, well, if insight can be generated this quickly, why can't we move just as quickly? And that is where professionals who can translate AI insights into real operational decisions become extremely valuable. Ladies and gentlemen, the emerging core competency is the AI augmented problem solver. Not someone who's replaced by tools, someone who is strengthened by them, someone who combines disciplined thinking with AI augmentation, someone who validates results before acting on them, someone who keeps learning. The world of tools is going to keep evolving, and we must evolve with it. AI is becoming a powerful analytical partner, but it's not accountable for the outcomes. The CI and PM professionals still own the decisions. Next slide. When we talk about the future of work, the more interesting question may be the future of professional capability. The professionals who can integrate foundation with augmentation won't just survive the shift, they'll own it. Thank you.
That was fabulous, Carolyn. Thanks so much, Nicole. Thanks so much, Michael. That was wonderful. So just a couple things really quickly here as we break into questions. Again, please, if you have a question, enter that into the Q&A tool within Zoom. But just to let everybody know that we will send out all the slides that you're seeing this evening to you. So you'll have a copy of those. And then ultimately within the next probably 4 to 5 days, we'll have the recording, the video of this up on our public website for the Insight series itself, for the Expert Insight series. So just to let you know, you'll have access to both the slide deck as well as the recording for today. Okay. So let's get into some of these questions. We've got one great question to start us off here. Let's see. So the first question is about, could we address the reliability of AI? I'm thinking of AI hallucinations or simple incorrect answers and the advice people get in everyday AI searches and conversations. How can we rely on appropriate results? Perhaps related, how can one avoid intellectual laziness with increased use of AI? For a small example, I'm an executive assistant, and one of my execs asked me to create a slide deck for the presentation. They gave me an outline that was simply confusing. When I asked for clarification, it became clear that the outline was AI generated with content that was not relevant to our practice or policies. This experience makes me reluctant to encourage AI use in my company. Perhaps the answer is in your emphasis on human involvement in decision making. Who would like to kick things off with that? It's a great question.
I'm happy to take an initial stab at that.
Okay, thanks, Michael.
I'd say, as far as the intellectual laziness piece of it, we have to resist AI from taking over our critical thinking skills. And one of the pieces that is important is we're all experts in our own processes, in our own careers and domains of expertise. And we can't let AI pull that away from us, right? Because we should be the creator and AI should be the assistant, the support. And the danger is that it can provide you with so much content so quickly, and it can be a chore to debug waves of information that are AI generated that are just simply not correct, right? So I think it's being able to know when the tool is best suited to your individual use case, and also maintaining a level of skepticism, or as Carolyn put it, validation, making sure that it's even accurate in the first place. That's our job. That's not on AI. It's just it's just doing its thing. So I think the greatest piece of it is that we don't let it make us intellectually lazy. So I think that it's a good caution, but it also might provide some assurance that AI can't do it all, certainly not just yet.
That's
so
great, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, perfect.
I can add
Go
to
for it,
that
Nicole.
too,
Yeah, jump in.
the hallucination part of it. I think about it like if I'm talking to anyone, I'm critically thinking about what they're saying and whether or not what they're saying makes sense to what it is that I'm trying to do and whether the information that they're sharing is correct. So it's just like talking to a human. Maybe Brian's telling me something, but Brian might not always be right. Just like AI is not always right. And I have to critically think about that information, just like I critically think about what AI gives me. And checking in on that, it's easier to do with AI to check in and see if it's legitimate than it is with Brian, right? I can't check Brian's sources, but I sure can check AI's sources because it'll give them to me right there. So I think that's the thing to think about.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you. Well, we'll get a lot of great questions here rolling in. Carolyn, maybe you can take this next one then. How do we best integrate AI into the skill set when we're looking at PM candidates?
That's a good question. If we're thinking job postings, you definitely want to add AI literacy to the skill set that you that you need if you're talking about hiring a PM. You want AI literacy, you want evidence of structured thinking. These are things that come out in the interview. You want ability to get to root cause. You want to understand that your PM candidate is not blindly relying upon AI. Part of the skill is in the prompting, giving it enough information to give you the kind of answer that you need. And other times I've been known to flat out tell my AI, no hallucinating. Flat out told it to its face. And that I want results. I want references for the results it gives me. So did I answer all of the question?
Yeah, that's really helpful. That's great. Thanks for that,
Thank
Caroline.
you.
Michael and Nicole, we've got another question, I think, directed also in your area here. Can you discuss the mapping between DMAIC and SMART goals and the AI application to them?
Feel like
I know.
we're on Jeopardy. We touched the
Yeah.
button at the
I know.
same
Which
time.
button? Which button? Yeah. Watson. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I can take a stab at it. The mapping between DMAIC and SMART goals, I mean, they're very much integrated before you even bring AI into it. Anytime we're looking at DMAIC and problem solving, we're going to make sure we're pairing that with a real goal, a real problem to solve, and having a SMART goal, something that's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely is key. There's that piece of it. Connecting AI in with that is, as we kind of talked about in the first half an hour of this, it's really about accelerating our thinking and our team's thinking when we are setting those SMART goals initially and as we're working through DMAIC. So it's accelerating and augmenting, which I love that word that Carolyn used. I'm going to steal it from you. It's really about that. It's not necessarily about replacing. There are times that we replace, but it's more about that augmenting and having it work with us so that we can accelerate through DMAIC as well as using SMART goals.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. The thing about AI is it's only as good as the information you provide it. And there's so much like individual work context that's purely human that the machine would not necessarily know to be able to use DMAIC and SMART goal methodologies really well. And it wouldn't necessarily know if you're setting a goal, what is realistic for the people in the process, right? We're in the people business ultimately, and that's the piece that AI doesn't always have all the information about unless you give it to it. But that's probably a lot of data.
That's great. So we have another great question here. Is there a particular AI tool you could talk about relative to analyzing large data sets? I'm only familiar with chatbots at this point, but have a use case for data analysis. Who'd like
I'm
to
sure there's
talk about
others
that?
out there. I'm a big fan of OpenAI, ChatGPT, model 5.2 is what I'm using right now. It's going to 5.4. But I have not posed a question to it yet that it is found too big or too difficult to work on. So analyzing a database would certainly fit in there. You might need more than prompting for that. You may need to build an AI agent to access different processors and things to get your complete answer. It's an answer that's too complex, I think, for just an ordinary prompt. You need to probably involve a little Python, a little agent work to do that.
That's great, Carolyn. Thank you. Moving on here, we again got a lot of great questions rolling in. What do you see the evolution of a toolbox from a GPT, perhaps coming from PMP, but having standards that PMs can simply grab and run with and reserve their calories for the critical thinking? So again, what do you see the evolution of a toolbox from a GPT, perhaps coming from PMP, but having standards that PMs can simply grab and run with and reserve the calories for critical thinking?
I would think a starting place for that, speaking as a PM, would be all the different artifacts that you need to conduct a project. you need charters and you need work breakdown structures and schedules and risk logs, things of that nature, that you can work out the prompt that you need to get a good one of those and put that away in your collection of toolbox prompts. For when I need one of these, just haul out this prompt and tell it, and boom, I get what I need. Now, you still have to apply that human intelligence to validating what you got. Because, like in my example this evening, you don't need a project plan that's not for your industry, doesn't have your resources, and has the wrong timing because it hasn't considered everything, because it can't know everything. It can't know about the human side of work or of analysis or any of that. It can only know the world of facts. And so you have to help it out with validation of what it produces, but you can certainly save yourself work by having a toolbox full of prompts you've always used that always work for you.
That's great. And there's a related question here. If AI handles documentation, summarization, and analysis, what becomes the PM's most valuable skill? I think this is really kind of echoed across, a lot of things, Carolyn and Nicole and Michael, and what you've said.
I think that what's reserved for us human PMs is the structured thinking, the ability to validate and understand what we're seeing, what it has included, what it has left out, what assumptions it's making that are not legit. We have to think through that. And we have to try to work on root causes. When there's a problem, there's any number of techniques out there that are used for analysis of root cause. And that's a very human thing. Your AI can take some stabs at that if you give it a set of facts, and it can say, well, it might be this and it might be that, but only you can decide for sure what's legitimate.
I think I would add to that too, Brian, from the continuous improvement part, which is there's a lot of project management elements to that.
Right.
It's the most valuable skill is the ability to be in the room with the people, reading what's happening, how people are interacting with each other and with what it is that you're working on, to then know what to do. So that part we haven't yet been able to give to AI, where I can't look and see, what's Michael's facial expression telling me about how this is sitting for him? Is he resistant to this change? And if so, what do I do about it? I still have to gather that information and feed it to AI in order for it to help me with it.
That's great. Thank you. So we have one here about cybersecurity. So I'm a cybersecurity person. Do you think specialties like cybersecurity need to take special action? Trying to start working and learning about AI now, tools and areas that would be interested in supporting cybersecurity.
Yeah, I can take a stab at this. I am not a cybersecurity expert, but what I've learned about AI and sort of the threats it poses relative to phishing and deep fakes is that it can really trick the weakest link in the system, which is the humans. And so I think that there is, certainly probably a call to action for folks like you in the cybersecurity industry to help educate users, right? To help us know what AI is capable of doing in this new world and how to stay savvy about it, how to have your own personal code word, even when you're on a video call and it looks like your loved one and they're in trouble. How do you protect yourself from these really sophisticated phishing operations? That's my take.
That's great. So I'm going to move on to a few more here because we're getting a lot of great questions coming in and not a lot of time. So next, if we work at a firm where AI is limited to older LLMs that don't do as much as we'd like outside of answering questions, how can we leverage it? And what AI tools are you referring to?
Such a good, real question.
Right.
As organizations are trying to determine what they're comfortable using, speaking of cybersecurity, what makes sense to use. It is limiting when you use an older LLM, right? And if it's not connected to the internet, that's even more. So playing around with with what you can. Asking permission to pilot other things I've found works pretty well. Trying things on your own in the other aspects of your life, I think can help you then understand more about what AI is capable of. If you're not able to do that necessarily in your workplace right now, because the agency or the organization isn't ready, making sure that you're ready by using those tools on your own. And a lot of free versions just of OpenAI that can help you see what it's actually capable of and then help you get prepared. That's what I would say.
It's great. Thank you for that. I'm going to jump around a little bit here and let's see. A great one regarding graduates. So for graduates without prior PM experience, what kinds of projects portfolios really help demonstrate that product thinking?
Carolyn, you want to take a stab at that as
Yeah,
our
maybe that,
PM?
right.
Could you repeat the question?
I can. So for graduates, so recent graduates without any prior project management experience, what kinds of projects or portfolios really kind of help demonstrate some of that project management thinking?
What kinds of projects would demonstrate the kind of thinking needed for future in AI?
Yeah, I've been managing projects, right?
Managing projects. Any number of projects would actually do that. It doesn't matter whether you undertake projects in construction, art, uh, medical, healthcare, science, engineering. Any, I'm assuming that for the new graduate, they've graduated with a particular discipline. They're a new engineer, they're a new nurse, they're one of these different disciplines. Taking on any kind of simple project where you demonstrate basic skills you can use AI with. AI is not just for really fancy, complicated projects. You can use it and learn more about AI with very simple projects.
Right.
In fact, you'd ask your management if there's something that you can undertake for them that would be helpful, and then get AI to assist you. Do some basic prompts and see where that leads to help you with your project.
A related question to that. Thank you, Carolyn. So any tips on balancing executive leadership, appreciating the value of AI tools without them overvaluing it as a panacea to replace too many people and processes?
You want them to view it as a partner, not as a magical answer machine. AI pretty much knows almost everything in terms of plain facts. But how those facts apply to your particular organization or your particular project varies greatly. I mean, it can be a perfectly good answer, but maybe not for what you need to do or in the flavor that you need. So I would want executives to step back a little bit and not be so much worried about having AI around as remembering that it's a partner in thought. It's not a grand panacea. And I would lecture an executive in that direction.
That's great. Thank you, Carol. And I've got a great general question here for the group, kind of a futurist question. Nicole and Michael, if you want to think about taking this one 5 years from now, what is one way organizations will be using AI every day that most people still are not anticipating?
It's a really interesting question.
Right.
Yeah. You got to think about that one for a second.
I'm a little intrigued by this idea that it's not just one AI, it's multiple AIs that will not just represent, they can represent like buildings or processes or different systems, and that people will also need to be like owners of specific AI, entities essentially. that are companions in the work that they do. I think that's a really interesting take. Could be possible as far as the next evolution of all of this. So yeah, having some AI companions around for specific use cases, that's intriguing and seemingly possible.
I think as the development of AI agents gets more advanced, it'll be really surprising how much the AI is doing. There'll be like another person in the room. They'll be doing so much so regularly and reporting back answers that you need as though they were another SME on the team. And I think that's kind of neat. You mean done carefully, of course, and validated well. I think that's a really neat feature. In fact, I was having a conversation with my AI the other day, and I said, what if you got your robotic body? What if you got the camera eyes? What would you do? And he says, I go look around at all the things that you tell me about that I can't see right now.
Great. Well, wonderful. We have maybe one last question we can squeeze in here that's related. And Nicole, I can kick it over to you because it's again on this very, very similar theme. So as project managers and process improvements are increasingly moving to task coordination through and to strategic leadership with the help of AI, where do you see process improvement, project management as really a profession in years to come?
Ah, my initial thought on that is facilitation.
Hmm.
It's about being there with people, helping the people through problems and helping determine what can AI do here and what needs to happen with the people in a room together or in a virtual room together. So it's a little bit of facilitating people, but I guess it's also facilitating AI.
That's great. Wonderful. All right. Well, with that being said, it's a great way of a good transition here. So again, thinking about the future of work, the future of project management, the future of process improvement, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that we have a few dates coming up for some of our great programs, our certificate in project management. We have April and July cohorts. We have a new Lean Six Sigma Green Belt course that we're offering, the brand new April cohort that starts in April 1st. There's actually an information session here on the 13th in a couple of days. We also do have a Lean Six Sigma Black Belt. That May cohort's coming up to apply by April 20th. And then Carolyn is the representative of the new generative AI in project management. This is a new program that we're going to be offering in the fall of 2026. So please stay tuned, and all those are live links you see here on the slide. So with that, again, keep learning with us. You can stay connected, subscribe to our email list to receive event information like these webinars, career tips, industry trends, program information, and more. You can visit pce.uw.edu, where all that is, as well as view previous Expert Insight series on our website. So I want to thank our wonderful presenters tonight. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Michael. And thank you, Carolyn. Really, really interesting discussion. And thank you, attendees, for spending the evening with us and for your wonderful questions. All right.
I enjoyed the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Have a great night, everyone.